we go.
The door.
Just this. Record and it's recording.
Hey.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Rosa. Hi,
Hey.
Sam.
Good morning.
When you left to get the stands, I was sitting there waiting to scare you.
That's so rude of you. I'm glad that didn't happen.
Why?
We were going to get it on camera too.
Oh my god. You already have enough videos of you being scared.
So many. So many. Alessia, what's CrossFit?
I'm not doing this.
Why?
I'm not answering this question. I already answered it, didn't I?
Okay, Sam, what's CrossFit? Yeah, but you refine your answer.
So we were at the Motion Ball Gala last week and we presented CrossFit as a community-based fitness program for all ages, skill levels, and points of the fitness journey.
Simple.
Beautiful. I don't have anything to add.
That definition to me is constantly changing. And it also changes depending on who you're saying it to. Like, we had a chance to
Completely
compare
agree.
that a little bit.
Yeah.
So like a student comes up to you, hey, Prof Masterillo.
Okay, get out of here.
I heard that you do CrossFit. What's CrossFit? You're just like, I'm not doing this.
I'm absolutely not participating in this discourse.
I'm the professor.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the last time someone asked me. I always, like, my go-to is like, just come try a class. Just come try a
Get
class.
closer to the microphone.
Just come try a class. You guys like my mic stand?
Well, for the people who can see it.
It's a vase. Vase.
Should we introduce our guest of honor? Not so guest of honor.
Sure.
Instead of doing this whole CrossFit jumble for another 5 minutes.
Yeah, go. Welcome, Sam.
Welcome, Sam.
Hey
Welcome
guys.
back. Once host, now a guest.
Love it. Third time on the podcast. It's fun. So much fun.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Feels like mini therapy session for me. It's good.
Aw, that's so wholesome. That's
That is
lovely.
cool.
Yeah. This is going to feel like a therapy session, I think. Probably for all of us.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's have some deep
So
talks.
yeah, so the topic that we're talking about today is Sam's journey in CrossFit and how it kind of acted as like a bit of a healing mechanism to where he was at in his life. So we've touched on it a little bit, right? We've kind of talked about the basics of like where you're at with your life, what you used to do, and how CrossFit and fitness kind of came in and helped you revamp your life. It's a story that's, you know, when we were in Toronto a couple weekends ago, like I had the conversation with so many people because I feel like I got into conversations with a lot of people who kind of worked in the similar style, in a similar style of career.
Yeah.
And they were just super over it, right? And we it's actually really funny. The guy who does all the website stuff for CF24, we had a meeting with him earlier this week, and he was working for a big firm doing all their like engineering and stuff, software engineering, and he just decided to quit and take up flying planes. And now he's trying to get his commercial flying, and it's like, anyway, it reminded me of you, and I feel like I'm constantly going back and telling people about your story, so here's an opportunity for you to kind of share it with the world.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
So I think, I was thinking of the best way to just jump into it and start talking about everything. So I figured the easiest way to do it was just to introduce phases of my life and then try and tie in part of my fitness journey, but also mental health. Does that work?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be chronological at all.
Okay.
Just say what speaks to you, and we'll go from there.
Okay, cool. So I grew up in Ottawa. I grew up a pretty shy kid. I'd say I was very timid. Still am. I'm naturally introverted, but I've grown my extroverted side, I think, over the years. Was never an athlete growing up. I played a lot of rec league sports, hockey, baseball, volleyball, but was never serious about it, nor was I ever serious about health and wellness. I think I ate crap all the time. I didn't really care about exercise. I really hated exercise, to be quite honest with you. So where I'm at right now, it's just kind of, it's very odd to me. In any case, as I graduated high school, there was always a push to do the sciences, especially in high school. It was take physics, take chemistry, and I wanted to make my parents proud, so I was yeah, let me get into this science field. I think my original intent was to be an orthodontist or something like that. So
one of those big,
yeah,
bold dreams.
Exactly. Just make a ton of money, fix people's teeth, you know. So I ended up going to the University of Ottawa. I started off studying biochem. I was totally not prepared for that. Basically flunked out my first year. Got put on academic probation. I just had no idea what I was doing, right? Like some 17-year-old kid in university just trying to survive, and it just didn't work out. So it was around that time that I was really that's where my mental health journey started. I was like really down in the dumps. I was overweight at the time. I think I weighed like 240, 245.
Wow. Like
severely overweight, like never exercised. I stopped.
For context, what do you weigh now?
So it goes back and forth. Right now I weigh 215. I've been as low as 170. So
okay.
My weight has fluctuated, and that in itself is part of the whole mental health journey. But in any case, this was a 240 of just, I was overweight. Like there's no way to cut it. I was eating sugar. I wasn't exercising, all that kind of stuff. So that was kind of a turning point in my life where I decided that, okay, exercise needs to be a part of my life, and I need to start taking like school seriously. So I ended up switching into an economics program with a minor in business. Why? I'm not really sure. I just knew that like, hey, it was sort of businessy, maybe I'd be better at that. I was pretty good at math. And I started going to the school gym. So I was doing your traditional bodybuilding stuff, you know, like I remember my first workout, I did like bicep curls and bench press, and I couldn't move my arms straight for like 2 weeks. I think it was like minor rhabdo.
What university was this at?
University of Ottawa.
Okay.
So is that like the GGs? Yeah, Minto, yeah. I had no idea what I was doing, just working out with my friends, you know what I mean? But I think that's how most people start, right? They just start somewhere and then you learn as you go. So like through that phase, I was never really in love with university, but I did develop like this sense of like work ethic and determination to do really well. Especially after like failing my first year, I was determined to come back and do better. So I did. I did pretty well in my undergrad. Mind you, I studied my butt off, like I worked my ass off, and like I said, just developing those skills and work ethic. But later in my university, like before I graduated my undergrad, is really when I started to feel like anxious and almost like feel like this obsessive compulsive nature to me. Like I was obsessed with studying. Like if we were going to a family gathering or I was going to hang out with friends, I'd bring my cue cards just so like I could study. And that's like an anxiety avoidance, right? It's like one of those tics where I feel anxious, like, oh my God, I'm gonna fail my test in 2 weeks. But if I study these notes for 5 minutes, maybe I won't feel so bad about myself.
Wow.
So I started, my first experience with like mental health was like talking to one of the PhD psych students there, just about like that whole process. And you know, she couldn't exactly diagnose me, but probably told me I was suffering from like generalized anxiety disorder and maybe some like obsessive compulsive tendencies. So it was good just to like find out about that stuff, but I didn't really think too much of it. I kind of just moved on with my life. So I graduated. I did very well. I was working at TD Bank as a teller at the time, and like I didn't really want to do that. And because I had done well, I was basically offered a free ride to do a master's in economics. Mind you, like I wasn't in love with economics, but like, hey, if I'm gonna get a chance to do a master's, like that'd be cool, right? Like that's
and for free.
And for free, that's what a successful person would do. Like my parents would be proud if I did that. So I did. So I started the master's program. What I found most interesting about economics was the international trade. Like I loved traveling, so like the thought of like traveling back and forth to different foreign locations was really cool to me. So at the time there was a youth program that was introduced to me by my cousin, and it was called Global Vision. Basically we did youth trade missions to China. So I represented businesses in the Ottawa community, and we went to China, went to like a few cities, Beijing, Chengdu, Guangzhou, Hong Kong, and we just like try to make business connections for our partners here in Ottawa over there. So that experience prompted me into a world like, damn, I want to be like a foreign service officer. Like this is pretty cool. I get paid to travel and talk to cool high government officials and stuff like that. So when I came back to Canada, that was kind of what I set my sights on. Like, this is what I want to do. I want to be a foreign diplomat. So it was around that time that I actually watched one of the first ever CrossFit documentaries. Like I think it was like the 2015 Games documentary where David Sauter won. And I was like, holy shit, these people are superhumans. Like whatever I've been doing in my fitness program, like I don't feel fit at all. Like I've been back squatting 135 for 10 reps for the last 5 years. Like how are these people like doing this? So that was kind of in the back of my mind. And so I slowly introduced like quote unquote CrossFit training on my own at like University of Ottawa Good Life. I would just like do some deadlifts, run over to a rower, do some rowing. By the time I got back to my deadlift bar, someone had cleared it up already. Just like stuff like that, you know. but I didn't have the courage to try it. So from there I graduated, and I got a really cool opportunity to do an internship in Hong Kong. So I was working with the Foreign Service Officers, Trade Commissioners at the Canadian Consulate in Hong Kong. So I moved there. So my first ever time moving out of my parents' basement, I moved to the other side of the planet, living in a 70 square foot condo.
Dear God.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like, I think I mentioned this, but like my bed was like 5 feet long, and I'm like 6'2", 6'3", so it was interesting, but like a crazy experience nonetheless. Like, here I am, this 24, 25-year-old kid. I'm having dinner at like the Governor General's place at the Canadian Consulate, like meeting these government officials, meeting cool like Chinese-based companies. I'm like, man, I'm living the dream. Like I want to keep working hard, and that was motivation to just keep going on my discipline and my work ethic and stuff. And I often look back at those 8 months there as like one of the more fond moments of my life, where I was really happy, and it was just like a new experience to me. In any case, I had to move back. Moved back to Canada. At the time, my partner was living in Toronto, so I moved back to Toronto. And this is where the mental health really kind of went up to the next level. So again, I wanted to get into global affairs. It didn't work out. It was a very hard hiring process, but I did get on with a great company, Export Development Canada. In that role in Toronto, I was working with Canadian tech companies, like food and bev too, and some like textiles, but mostly like just seeing how we could grow Canadian small and medium-sized businesses internationally. And I was doing great. Like, I had a great salary, great benefits. I was like top salesperson at the company in 1 year in the province. So like, I was very proud of myself. I was like, damn, like this is the dream, and I'm doing it. But I couldn't help feel like this sense of sadness. Deep down, I felt like I was acquiring all these material things, and I was moving towards, like the white picket fence dream with a family. But I couldn't help but feel sad every morning I woke up. And like, I wasn't sure what it is. I struggled with a lot of things. I struggled with my partner at the time. Was she the right person? I struggled with, is this what I want to do with my life? I struggled with things like my sexuality. So there was all these things in my mid-20s like swirling around in my head, and I just didn't know what to do with my thoughts. Like, I wasn't very good at analyzing my thoughts, but I was also introverted, so all I did was ruminate about like just negative stuff all the time. So like, just based on some conversation with my partner, I decided like, hey, I'm gonna go see someone here in Toronto and get reintroduced to like therapy and like just talk about anxiety, depression, that sort of thing. Around that same time, alcohol was very much a part of the business corporate culture in Toronto, right? Like, not every day after work, but 3 or 4 times a week we would do networking, right? So you'd go to a networking function, there'd be free wine or cocktails, and that was part of it. Have a few cocktails, talk to people about business, we do deals here, we do deals there, and it just became a normal thing. But what you don't realize over the course of that time is that you're almost drinking 4 or 5 times a week. And that's just for work, right? That's not like hanging out with your buddies on the weekend and stuff like that. And so that like whole routine became very natural to me. Over a year or so, I became more and more unhappy. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. At one point, I thought I wanted to be a YouTuber. I started making like men's fashion YouTube videos and like vlogs.
Are you kidding me?
I swear to God.
Are they still? Yeah.
Yes. I'm not sure I want to disclose the name of my channel, but I'll show you.
Oh my God,
Find it.
Reza, you could totally learn something from Sam's channel.
I've learned so much from this guy.
I could learn from
Yeah. So yeah, like one point in my life, I attached a lot of my identity to like how I looked and how I dressed. I've always been viewed as like, this sounds like the tall, good-looking guy, and like I tried to like lean into that by like dressing well all the time and just like trying to like make that my identity. But of course that was the wrong way to do it. But I thought that was going to be a part of my life for a while. But of course my channel never blew up, so my Instagram modeling career kind of died.
I would say that you are still very much so the tall, good-looking guy who dresses very well.
Yep.
To give you guys some context, he did win the award for best dressed at NCR. And he inspires me to not look like an absolute scrub every day. So
I have no artistic abilities, but I do think I know how to dress well. So
you saved me from a complete disaster in Toronto. I had to go buy new shoes last minute. Did you hear about that?
Oh, I was there for the whole thing.
Side note, Reza was the best dressed at the first day of the conference. He was. He really was. I was very proud of him. He was better dressed than I was. No, he was.
But I complained about it every fucking minute. Sorry. So, okay, carry on.
And so, in any case, that YouTube career never blew up, and I started finding myself using alcohol as my main coping mechanism. It was around this time that I was still going to like therapy, and I was talking to my therapist like, hey, I feel like I'm drinking too much, like what's going on here? And so they introduced me to antidepressants. Now, I don't have anything against medication, but I do think that doctors are quick to be very reactive and introduce antidepressants instead of natural things like food or exercise or mindfulness, that sort of thing. So, in the back of my head, this is a quick fix, man. You're gonna give me a pill and I'm gonna be happy? Like, hell yeah, let's do it. So I got on these antidepressants, and the best way to describe my life from that point was like a video game. I did not feel sadness, I did not feel joy. I felt like I was in a video game just moving forward constantly, like I had no emotions.
And this was obviously attributed to the pills?
This was ever since I started taking the pills, yes.
Okay, so like you weren't happy, you weren't sad, you were just like automatic?
I was just like dull, dull. And it allowed me to get through my days, but they were very, very dull and gray. And so what I found is that whenever I would drink, I would actually experience an emotion, whether it be happiness, laughter, maybe I would cry. And so like that ability to feel like any sort of emotion was like, oh, I like this. And so drinking became like a regular thing to me. At first, again, it was the networking and then drinks with my partner at the time. But then when I really started to notice it was a problem was when I started hiding it from friends and family. So it'd be like a Sunday, I'd be drinking by myself. I wouldn't tell my partner I was drinking, and then we'd just be hanging out, and all of a sudden I'd be passed out because I was drinking. And like, my life started to deteriorate from there. Like, I started losing relationships, I started losing friends, I started performing very poorly at work, and I realized it was a problem. And I'd go through phases where I'd be able to stop for a few weeks, but then you're like, hey, let me just have drinks on a Friday night with friends, and then it would just turn over into, okay, now I'm drinking again Saturday, I'm drinking again Sunday, and then I'll clean up again on Monday. So I continued to do things like cognitive behavioral therapy. They switched me medications a bunch of times, but same thing. The meds would work for 2 weeks, and then I'd turn into a zombie again. So I knew from there that I needed to make a switch. I was so intrigued with this CrossFit thing, but at the time, I just wasn't trying it because I was scared. My partner wasn't really into it, so I was like, I'll just keep working on a good life. Anyway, so I made a big decision that I needed to do something on my own and try something different. Like, I believe in massive action. Like, if something's going wrong in your life, you need to take action. You can't just wait for something to happen. So I left that relationship, and I thought that would solve a lot of my problems. Maybe I'd be happier. Nothing against this person. Like, she'll always hold a special place in my heart. But she wanted the white picket fence dream, and I couldn't see myself doing that for another 30 years, like working for government and just collecting a paycheck just to live for the weekends. So anyways, after that happened, life actually got worse. I got lonelier. I lost my community, I lost my friends, I lost my support network in Toronto, and my life became walking from my condo 500 meters to my work, back and forth. All while still like struggling with drinking, with depression, with anxiety, like all this shit was going on in my head. So one day in October, not October, but 2018, I decided to try CrossFit. One of my friends at the time was like, hey, I'm doing this CrossFit class, like you should try. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it today. I'm gonna try CrossFit. So I went to my first ever CrossFit class in 2018. It was CrossFit Liberty Village at the time, which I believe now Delta Train. Really cool community there. First workout was like kettlebell swings, box jumps, and burpees, just like classic CrossFit stuff. Yeah. And man, it was hard. I got the shit kicked out of me. Like, it was hard, but I loved it. It was like so cool. I had so much fun doing it. And I was kind of hooked from there. I would love to say that I was like a regular from there, but my life was in such like chaos that I would go like 3-4 times a week. And I would do my best to show up, but for the most part, I couldn't do it. I was just too much stuff going on in my mind. So my mental health really came to a head all right, I'll take a step back. So in October of 2019, the drinking got to the point where it was so bad. I woke up on a Monday morning once and opened my eyes, and a whole weekend had passed and I had no idea what happened. I guess I went on some sort of like bender drinking, And like that was like, this is it, like I gotta stop. Like it was just like such a harsh realization, because outside I'd call my boss that day and be like, I can't come to work. Like I just kept taking mental health days to drink, and like today was like the day, like I'm done. So yeah, October 2019 or 2019, I took my last like sip of alcohol, and like I was like, I'm done. I had to stop. It was just, it grabbed a hold of my life, and it was like, it wouldn't let go. I haven't had a drink since then. It's been 2.5 years. But also, I'd love to say that like that fixed everything, but it didn't. We're getting close to the point where my life kind of changed. So that was October, and you know the winters aren't great for me. Like, you know, they talk about like seasonal affective disorder. Like I feel like a lot of people struggle with that. Like I'm a sun child. I love the sun. I'm always happier when I'm in the sun. And so February I was in Ottawa for a work conference, and around this time my mental health was, I was living in like the darkest days of my life. Like I don't know how to put it into words, but the easiest way to say it is like I romanticized about suicide. Like I fantasized about it. That's all I would think about. Like, man, it'd be so cool if I could just like take my life and just like get rid of just like all the bullshit in my head and just like feel some sort of peace. So we were doing like this networking thing, and I just like, I couldn't be bothered to network with colleagues anymore and just like do small talk about shit I didn't care about. So I was walking home from this conference on my way back to the hotel, and I was like, how can I take my life? Like, I won't go into details, but like I was seriously thinking about it. And I shared this story on social media once, but as I was walking home, there was a coffee shop, it was like a Starbucks. Sitting in that window was my best friend. And it was like this weird coincidence, because I was like too scared to reach out to him. Just because like I didn't want to tell him all this stuff, like how bad I was struggling. I was embarrassed. But I went in, I talked to him, we talked about like ego, like how it like consumed my life, like how I didn't want to work for government anymore. I just wanted to find happiness and like do something that I love for a living. And like from that moment, it was like kind of something like switched. The next day I was in like this work conference again, just sitting there, and I said I gotta get help right now. So I called my dad came and picked me up, and we went right to the hospital. Like I wanted to check in just to tell them like I was suicidal, I needed help immediately. They tried to turn me away, which was like really messed up. Like, you know, like, yeah, you talk about like Bell mental health, like talk day, and that's great, like it raises awareness for it, but like the system was so overwhelmed with people that they're just like, here, take some pills and just go home. And I'm like, no, you don't understand, I've been doing this for 5 years, I can't just take pills anymore. So finally, after 12 hours of sitting there in the emergency room, they finally agreed to take me in. So here I am in the psych ward of the Ottawa General Hospital, sitting there and like reflecting on my life. And in like that moment, I had like this mystical experience where like I just became conscious. I was like, what have I done my whole life? I've worked my butt off. I've like tried to be a great human being, but I'm sitting here in a hospital bed in the psych ward. And it was very like eye-opening. I need to change my life. I gotta do something I love, something that feels fulfilling. So I spent 3 weeks there. It was tough. Had to leave my work behind, had to leave my life in Toronto behind just to get some help there. Therapy, medication, all that kind of stuff. At that same time, my dad had got me a book called, it was by Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth, and it talks about like mindfulness, living in the present moment. You know, the big takeaway was like, depression is living in the past, anxiety is living in the future, but peace is living in the present moment. And like I hadn't understood that till I read that line, and I was sitting in the hospital just like reading that, and it made sense. So I knew I loved CrossFit, and like in that moment I was like, I'm gonna be a CrossFit coach. So like while I was in the hospital, I was like doing all the therapy and stuff, and you know, just trying to sort out my life and do what I needed to do to get healthy. And like I printed the L1 and started reading the L1 in the hospital. Like I started the journey right there. Yeah, I started doing WODs in like the lunchroom. Like people were staring at me. I was doing like push-ups and like Tabata air squats, just like nonsense. But we put together a plan. Like the doctors there were so awesome. Like they saved my life really. Like a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy. We talked a lot about like mindfulness and dialectical behavioral therapy. So when I got out of the hospital, which was 3 weeks later, I dedicated my life to CrossFit and just finding peace and joy every day. So that's what I did for a year. I didn't work. All I did was therapy, CrossFit, and practice like mindfulness. 3 days after getting in the hospital, I did my first class at NCR, and then the gym shut down. So it sucked. It was like the worst timing, but like I still did the virtual classes, which was really cool, and like it was nice to be connected to the community that way. But like, you know, when I started, like, and I still am not a great athlete, but like I was still learning from the bottom, for the foundations. Like, what is the methodology? Like, what are the 9 foundational movements? How do I even do an air squat? So like I really started from the bottom. And so yeah, over that course of the year and the last 2 years, I dedicated my life to just again finding moments of peace throughout. And maybe we'll get into like my strategies for being healthy and stuff, but that's kind of my mental health journey, how I got into CrossFit. Yeah.
That was heavy.
That was heavy.
Thank you for sharing.
Of course.
I'll start by saying I can't even begin to express how happy I am that you're here with us, and you didn't take your life. Yeah, fuck. It's heavy. Okay, let's. Currently? So, are you still on medication?
Yeah, I'm still on medication. I'm not on like traditional SSRIs like most people. I'm on something called a NASA. It works for me. I don't feel like a zombie. That's kind of my next step, is getting off the medication. I'd love to be off it right now, but just like talking with my doctors, like we want to have like a whole couple of years where like everything in my life is stable. I'm super happy, and I feel like I'm approaching that.
Yeah.
But we're also the mentality like my life is so great right now. Like, why rock the boat?
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
the medication's not bringing any negatives to my life, other than personally deep down I don't personally believe like I need to be on it, but I also understand that I was in such a bad place and it's working for me right now, so that I'm happy to continue taking it.
Yeah, totally.
But long term, yeah, I'd love to start working my way off of it. Yeah.
And then are you still, so you said you see your doctor, like how often do you see your doctor?
So when I first got out of the hospital, I talked to my doctor weekly. I did therapy 3 times a week, so it was like super intense. Now I'm at the point where I talk to my doctor once every 6 months. I don't do therapy.
Wow.
I'm not saying people shouldn't do therapy, but I did therapy for like 2 years. And I feel like I got like all the skills that I need to be able to like be my own therapist, and that's what I worked on with my therapist, was like developing a strategy so that I could be my own therapist. And that's really what I've become, is my own therapist. It's not perfect. Like I still have bullshit in my life, like we all do, but I can often catch myself, and often like when I share stuff on Instagram, that's like me just doing therapy in my head and like trying to share that.
I love it. I love those daily pieces. I'm actually kind of rattled that you don't do it daily anymore.
I know. I
hover through a lot of
I would love to
on Instagram.
Yeah.
Those were the
it's
only
refreshing.
ones
It's
that
really
I would stop.
refreshing.
Like I'd hold it, I'd read the whole thing, and I would try to apply that to my life. Whether it's like just sitting outside for 15 minutes and not thinking about anything other than how beautiful the sun is, or whatever. Like lots of good stuff.
And I wish I was still doing it, and I want to. I think I just got to the point where it almost felt like a job at one point. Like I had to post, and sometimes I would stress about it.
Yeah.
Like, what am I going to post today? I need to think of something, and it would become more stressful than actually positive in my life.
Yeah.
And so there was another phase where, hey, if I practiced a mindfulness exercise that day, let me share it. But I've gotten away from that again. But it's something that I want to get back to. So I appreciate kind of like the push to do so.
Yeah, I loved it. Man, there's so much to talk about. Like that was a lot. I admire you in so many different ways. Like I think the biggest thing that I take away from that is like how resilient you are in this whole process. Like it seems like you were like constantly looking for peace, and you kept like getting away from it, and you kept fighting for it, and like you're finally at a place where you're the closest maybe you've ever been to like
100%. If you told me like 3-4 years ago, like would I ever experience joy, I would have said no. Like I honestly didn't really know what happiness was. Like it wasn't an emotion that I felt, or if I felt it, I would suppress it right away because I was guilty of all the mistakes in my past. And so Alessia like asked the question about like what is mental fitness to me, and like mental fitness to me is like living consciously, like being the silent observer of my thoughts, actions, emotions, and then like taking actions that support my values and my goals and not necessarily my ego. And so it's very hard to do those types of things, right? Like, no, I don't want to do therapy. No, I don't want to eat healthy today. No, I don't want to exercise today. No, I don't want to step outside my comfort zone. I just want to collect a paycheck at the government. But like ultimately, if you ignore those, you're moving towards a more unhealthy mind. You're moving away from your values and your core beliefs. And I believe that mental fitness and strength is taking small steps to achieve those goals. I'm not saying that someone needs to change their life overnight. You scale your life goals just like we scale CrossFit. You start with one little thing. Okay, I know that I need to eat healthy, so what can I do today to eat a little healthier? Or hey, I know I don't like this job, but what can I do to make a career in my life that's a little bit better? Hey, maybe I'm going to start a podcast where I do a podcast once every 2 weeks on a topic that I love. So you scale your life. So how do I work on my mental fitness? The big one for me has been like mindfulness. Like I don't formally meditate, but I do things that allow me to be present. CrossFit, super mindful. I journal. I try to read. I got my dog Tori. Her name is Satori, which is a Zen Buddhist term for a pure moment of presence where life's worries melt away. And so that was the purpose of getting a dog. Like I'm not a dog person. Like I know like you and PT joke about it, like not being dog people, and like I'm not either. But
I love dogs. I love dogs. PT, I won't speak on his behalf, but I feel like he wouldn't say that. I totally get it. Like I never was either, but for me it's like I get to spend time with her, and like I'm not thinking about life for a little bit. If we're on a walk, it's just like I'm thinking about her and like the trees and how beautiful it is. Maybe if PT listens to this podcast, he'll change his dog.
Well, he's got kids to help him out with that, I think. But so that's a way I work on my mental fitness in just everyday life.
Yeah. So Sam, I feel like I've seen this from like your daily like piece posts, but can you tell us, or for the people who haven't read your Instagram posts, what kind of peace or like mindfulness do you experience when you do CrossFit? Can you take us through that? Or like just tell us what it feels like for you, like viscerally.
So I think CrossFit was like my real formal introduction to like mindfulness and living in the present moment. Especially like in Toronto or like when I got out of the hospital, like it didn't matter if my life was in pure chaos and it was burning down around me. My 1 hour class was like, I forgot about life. Like all I could think about was how hard the workout was, how cool it was to be working out with humans, and just like how peaceful and calm I would feel after you finish a workout and you're just laying on the floor and you're breathing so heavy. It was like, yeah, like life's worries melted away. Just like, yeah, it was fantastic. And I've always been to like this super ambitious, driven human being, and I've really lacked the avenue to apply that ambition. And I feel like CrossFit has afforded me like an avenue to apply that human drive and ambition that I have deep down. Like, I'm not a great athlete, I'm not a great coach. I want to be a great athlete, I want to be a great coach. But I know that that journey to becoming a great athlete or coach is never ending. And that's what I absolutely love about it. I'm never going to be great, I'm never going to be perfect. But I can always keep chasing it, and I can always enjoy the small wins each and every day. And it also just like, I'm surrounded by superhumans every day. Like, I think about like Kaylee and Alessia. Like, Kaylee is like, she has 7 master's degrees. She's a professional rugby player, a physio. She coaches CrossFit. She's so strong. Then you have Alessia, who's like a PhD, a professor at the University of Ottawa. Like when you watch her move, it's like a work of art. And like, I get to be surrounded by these people every day. So it's just like, it's special.
I'm just a schmuck, eh?
Yeah.
No, it's like,
I'm kidding.
you two guys as well. It's just,
I'm just kidding.
I just like, yeah, everyone. It's just, yeah, I'm just so thankful.
I mean, dude, the same can be said about you.
I was just gonna say that.
You know, I know you probably hear this and it doesn't resonate in your brain, but like you truly inspire me. Like you inspire me. Coaching can become mundane, but when I see you do it and I see how passionate you are about it, it fires me up.
Yeah.
To be a better coach and to be a better athlete too. Like you're constantly asking me like, Rez, like, you know why? So, anyway.
So, and so yeah, we talked about like the passion for coaching, and like when I first got into CrossFit, the reason I wanted to get into CrossFit was to coach the superhuman. Like I wanted to coach like the CrossFit Games champ, fittest man or woman alive. Like that's how I was introduced to CrossFit, as many of us are. But I fell in love with coaching the everyday human. Like the day I fell in love with the CrossFit methodology was the day Avril did her first burpee in several years. So I've told the story before, but Avril's an 87-year-old athlete at her gym. And she comes not to be the fittest human on the planet, but she comes to maintain her functional competence, right? Like if she falls in her house, can she get off the ground to call for help? And so for several months, we worked on just being able for her to do an RX burpee. So get her chest and thighs on the ground, pick herself up off the ground. And for so many weeks and months, she needed assistance, my arm, a bike, a box. And she kept failing, but she kept showing up every day to try. And one day she managed to get up off the ground by herself without any assistance. And like in that moment, like I actually started crying in class and I had to walk around to the other side of the gym just to like compose myself. But like that was the day I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Yeah.
Well, I think it was a good move, and I can't help but think to myself, like I'm so happy that you're here. Like I actually can't picture my life without you right now. Like you become my training partner because Alessia and Kelly ditched me. And
we have not ditched you.
And you've also become a very good friend to me. Like you're someone that I can talk to about things that are going on in my life, and it's just crazy to me that I never would have thought that you've gone through everything that you talked about, and it kind of freaks me out a little bit because I can't help but think how many other people are probably going through similar battles and just don't have any resources or you mentioned you had your dad that was able to come pick you up right in that moment, and your friend in the coffee shop. Like, what kind of, I guess, what advice would you say to someone who's maybe feeling those thoughts that you earlier described? Like, what can they do? Right now, if they're hearing this podcast and they need help, like what's something that they could do?
I think a big one is belief. Often when you talk to someone about mental health, like you'll give them advice or something, and they'll say like, you don't understand. And like I was that person for so long. Like you could give me advice, this is how you fix your mental health, and I'd be like, but you don't understand what's going on in my head. Like you truly don't get it. But like from someone who's been to like the darkest depths of the ocean, I get it. Like I know how bad it can be, but you have to trust that you can find and you can reclaim the joy and happiness that you once felt. It's not an easy road, but nothing in life is easy. But it is achievable and it is conquerable. But you have to first start by surrendering your ego. You have to surrender to the help. You have to put your ego aside and know that you're in a bad place right now, and that's okay. And there are professionals and some awesome human beings on this planet that can really help you turn your life around. And with a little hard work and belief, you can do it. And so like, reach out to someone. Reach out to a mental health resource. Reach out to a counselor. Reach out to a counselor at your school. Reach out to a therapist. Just start somewhere. Just like fitness, you got to start somewhere. Scale it. Do the easiest thing you can do that'll bring you happiness that day, or maybe a bit of clarity to your life. And just start putting the pieces together one at a time. Each day, do something that helps move your life forward in a positive direction. It's so hard because everyone's story is so different. Everyone struggles with different aspects of their life, so there's no perfect formula for anyone, and I totally get that. But I often, like, when people are struggling, like, I use the phrase, like, there's always peace in the present moment. So, like, always remember that. Like, no matter how bad life is, if you sit here right now and just, like, be still and just, like, calm, like, there's peace here. Nothing bad is going on in your life. Maybe on the outside in your life circumstances, everything is terrible, but right now, right in this very second, there's absolutely nothing wrong with life. So.
And I think what is like particularly inspirational, Sam, is like in this story that we're having right now, like in this podcast, but like also in your mental health journey, like the vulnerability, like the vulnerability that it takes to tell your story, but also to ask for help. And like even like the vulnerability to like show up for your first CrossFit class, like you had to, as you said, like surrender your ego in that aspect too. I think that when we have more stories like this, we like normalize them and people aren't so afraid to talk about them. So
yeah.
I mean, I thank you for sharing that with us. I think that gives people a an opportunity to be permission to be vulnerable.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I was always so vulnerable. In fact, I was the very opposite of vulnerable. Like anytime someone would have a negative perception of me, I'd be so scared. Like I didn't want anyone to think negatively of me in any facet. I wanted to be the guy that everyone likes. But I found that over time, being vulnerable, sharing my emotions, acted as like two things. Like one, it was my self-therapy, being vulnerable. But also through my daily piece, I would always have like at least one person on my post be like, thank you, or share a story about them or a friend or a loved one that was struggling, and like that really hit home and it felt very fulfilling. And it made me realize that like these small acts that would take me 10, 15 minutes every day, put a positive in someone's day and maybe could have helped someone bring a little more clarity to maybe a difficult life circumstance or a difficult scenario they were in. And so that's why I choose and try to continue to be vulnerable. It's not easy, but it's something that I believe ultimately brings me closer to my values and goals, and I'll continue to do so.
Awesome.
Let's all be more vulnerable. Reza included.
You're staring at me like I should be more.
No, we just made eye contact. That's how it looked like you were going to say something.
So, you made a quick post about your trip to Toronto, and I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really think of it like that when we were traveling together. That must have been pretty cool for you, eh? Like to, I don't know, like conquer like an old
Yeah,
kind of thing.
for sure. So quick backstory. I always thought Toronto was like the coolest place on earth. Growing up in Ottawa, a small town, like I just wanted to live there, go to like bars, go to concerts, get all the food and stuff like that, live the corporate life. So yeah, I did that for 5 years, but I grew tired of it, and it affected my mental health. There's just always constant external stimuli in Toronto. Your brain activity never stops.
It's crazy.
It never stops. You walk fast, you think fast. It's just chaos in your mind. And so when I left Toronto, I was in a state of chaos. I had to pack up my whole apartment. I drove down to Toronto with my dad in a U-Haul. We packed up my whole apartment in 6 hours. We drove all the way back to Ottawa. It was the longest, one of the hardest days of my life, but I did it, and I hadn't been back since. So going there for the Motion Ball AGM, I was nervous. I was scared. Like, I felt like it was going to be like PTSD. Like I'd bring up some old trauma that wasn't there, and honestly I was scared. But like I was with Reza, like, and I appreciate what you said earlier. Like you become one of my best friends too, and like I knew that I would be safe with Reza.
So do I pass the travel?
You pass. You pass.
Of course you pass the travel.
I feel like I was just so annoying and I talk so much that I didn't give you an opportunity to maybe like.
No, not at all. It was great. And we lived in Toronto. We went to like this big fancy new bar restaurant. We stayed out till 1 a.m. We went to a
One in
Jays
the
game.
morning.
Well, I forgot. This is a funny story.
You guys didn't tell me this.
We left the bar probably midnight. We got in front of our hotel, and I'm like, God damn it! I left my card at the bar, and it was my only opportunity. Like I'm like, I won't be able to get it tomorrow because we have a full day. We're going to a Jays game. So Sam's like, oh, let's just walk back, and I'm like, oh man, like we go to Uber it, and it's like a 10-minute Uber, but a 15-minute walk.
And
So-
the Uber wasn't going to be there for 7 minutes.
Yeah, so we were like, let's just run. We came up with this idea to run, and our feet are damaged from wearing dress shoes.
Yeah, but you literally ran?
Yeah, we started running.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it was-
What are you wearing? Are you like you're wearing your nice
No,
clothes?
we're pretty well, Sam was more dressed up than I.
Well, yeah, it was like dressy casual. We were at like a nice
It was
restaurant.
actually we talked
Stresses
about it.
me
We
out.
talked about the next day. It was like a great run. Like we like kind of zoned out. And we were just
like both felt so good.
because you're like weaving in and out
It's like
of
an
like
obstacle run.
obstacles.
Yeah.
And, like anyway, when we got to the bar, this girl was there that we hadn't seen in a long time. Well, I hadn't seen in a long time, so I talked to her and then we left. But so we ended up being a little bit later than we would have. Yeah, I can't help it. I talk so much.
But yeah,
Do you remember my complaint rant?
complaint rant.
Like when I was like I know we shouldn't complain, but like sometimes I'm not complaining. I'm just talking about like a particular way I feel about something.
Oh my
It's
god.
not
I'm not gonna lie, at one point I really felt bad for Sam. I was like,
I did too.
this poor guy, is he gonna come back hating
I was like-
hating Reza?
I was like, I remember when we got home, I was like, poor Sam. Like he literally just like dealt with my inner dialogue for like 48 hours.
It's okay. It was fun.
It was good. It was fun.
It was fun. So we had like the full Toronto experience, and like 2 days of that was like enough.
Enough, yeah.
man.
You know, I had like said my piece. I walked by my old condo. Like I don't even think Rez knew, but like there was one point like we walked right by and I just like stared at it for a bit, and like we walked through the park where like I recognized that I had like a drinking problem, and like I just like kind of took it all in, and like it was closure that I needed, and it felt so good. So like yeah, it just like I was nervous, but I was like so happy. Actually, I saw my old boss there too from my old corporate job, and I found a lot of peace in Toronto after I left. Like it was enough. Like I was happy to get home and be back in my routine in the gym, but I think I needed that. So I'm happy that I went. And of course, the AGM was fantastic. Like met so many great, wonderful human beings.
So we were talking about like how well we slept when we got back from Toronto.
Oh, because like, I was probably so tired, right?
But we weren't that tired. Like the second night we went to bed at a reasonable time.
Not
like,
even tired from being up, just
it was
like
just
you're
like stimuli,
on. Yeah,
man.
yes.
Like, it was crazy.
You're probably like talking the whole time. You have to be on, socializing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I won't talk about the actual content, but yeah. Should we go work out?
Cool. You mean coach the class?
I'm gonna coach. Sam's gonna rest, and then at 1 p.m. we're gonna work out.
Okay.
Of course.
Thank you, Sam, so much.
Thanks guys for that. I really appreciate
Thanks.
the chance to
Yeah.
share my story.
I'm sure the NCR community is going to be very grateful that we finally.
Yeah. If
Yeah,
you're gonna,
give you the mic.
we should have prefaced this with like maybe grab a box of Kleenex before you listen to this.
I was going to put a trigger warning in the,
Okay. Good.
in the
Good.
episode. Yeah, we're good. The notes.
Cool.
Cool.
Okay.
See ya.
Thanks.
Oh, thanks guys.